guys, thanks for joining me again for All Things Nature with me, Ranger Christine at Boyd Hill Nature Preserve. Boyd Hill Nature Preserve is a 400-acre property in the heart of St. Petersburg, Florida. It's managed by the city of St. Pete as a nature preserve, which means that it is here to preserve all of the great things about wild Florida that we don't get to see very often here in such an urban area. Our mission is to help visitors to enjoy and appreciate wild Florida, even in the most densely populated county in the state. Now, this video series highlights any and all things nature with a different topic every month, and I'm excited about our topic this month. It's lakes, life below the surface. So first I'll be just giving you guys a few quick fun facts about the different lakes that we have here in Florida and some of their general characteristics. But then I'm going to show you some lakes of distinction, some fun lakes, some quirky lakes, and then I'll go into the history of a local lake that you guys might be familiar with if you've been here to Boyd Hill. So let's get started. So Florida is the land of 7,800 lakes. Most people don't know this, but we actually have the second most lakes of any state, right behind Minnesota, who's got about 10,000. Most of our lakes are shallow, between 5 and 15 feet deep at the deepest part. And the water is generally warm, as you'd expect, which is great for all of our plants and animal species that can thrive down here throughout the year in the nice warm water. But it's also great for us as people because that turns the lakes into these great places for fishing and boating. And we actually have, according to FWC, over 1.2 million freshwater anglers here in Florida that contribute over $1.7 billion of economic impact to the state. So not only are these really beautiful assets to our state, but really valuable ones as well. So to start off our lakes of distinction, let's just get the big one out of the way, Okechobee. This name actually means big water in the native Seminole language, and it covers 730 square miles, which is huge. It's actually the 8th largest lake in the entire US, but is of course the largest lake here in Florida. Now, despite its size, it's only an average of 9 feet deep. So it's not a deep lake at all. It's just spread out over a very large surface area. But it is still just a huge hotspot for birds, mammals, fish, plants. It's just an absolutely beautiful area when it comes to wildlife. And it's also a very, very popular fishing spot. I've heard great things about the largemouth bass fishing down there. And it's very important for the economic impact of that lake as well. The fishing industry. Next one up is Deep Lake, and as you probably guessed, this lake is known for being exceptionally deep. It's actually the deepest lake in South Florida at 95 feet deep. It was able to get this deep because it was actually formed by a sinkhole over 6,000 years ago. So it's a pretty old lake as well. It's actually down in the Big Cypress National Preserve, and you can only access it by trails, but I think it's really worth the trip if you're down for hiking down there. And it's surrounded by beautiful cypress trees. It's in an area where you might have the chance of seeing the Florida panther, which would just be really cool. I wouldn't suggest swimming in it. I don't suggest swimming in most lakes because of alligators, but you know, dipping your feet in it would probably be pretty good. Next up is one of our quirkiest lakes. It's Kingsley Lake, the roundest lake in the world. Now, I'm not sure who actually measures how round a lake is, but this one's pretty perfect. And it's perfectly circular, actually, because it's also a sinkhole lake. It's about 2,000 square acres, so it's large. It's located up by Jacksonville. And because it's also a sinkhole lake, it's pretty deep. It's about 90 feet, so a little, just a few feet shallower than Deep Lake, but still pretty admirable for Florida. Next is Lake Annie, one of my favorites. Lake Annie is fairly small. It's only 90 acres, but it's special in a few ways. It's located in the Archbold Biological Station, which is a both nature preserve and research station in Venus, Florida, that's located on the Central Ridge in the middle of Florida along the backbone of the state. That means the lake is located on a very high elevation relative for Florida. It's nearly pristine. There's very little water pollution or disturbance in the lake, so it's a really beautiful lake. But it's also very, very old. It's got a sediment record that goes back 50,000 years. Now, I have the little model of how sediment records kind of work down here in the left-hand side, where the sediment, the dirt, the dust, things like that, near the surface of the floor of the lake is, from present day or pretty recently. And as you get deeper down, that sediment is older and older. Now, that's important for us because we can use that sediment to actually reconstruct what this lake and what the lands around it used to be like back when those layers of sediment were laid down. And so Lake Annie, for, being small and fairly unnoticeable for people who wouldn't be looking for it, is actually a really important archaeological and paleolimnological a resource for us. And for anybody who doesn't know, limnology is the study of lakes. So paleolimnology means the study of ancient lakes. Finally, our final lake of distinction is Lake Maggiore. Now, here at Boyd Hill, we do pronounce it Lake Maggiore, but it is named after a lake in Italy, so perhaps the original pronunciation was more like Maggiore or something like that. But around here, Maggiore does just fine. You can see I've circled the lake right here on this map of Pinellas County. It is pretty big, and it is surrounded by most of the city. Now, this is the largest lake we have here in St. Pete. It's 375 acres, and it was previously called Salt Lake, as you can see on this old map I attached here. And that's actually because the water in the lake used to be fairly brackish, and this was due to it being connected to Tampa Bay by a creek called Salt Creek. And that creek has subsequently been dammed, so the salt content has gone down in the lake. But it is fun to know that it used to be called Salt Lake. And around here, the maximum depth for that lake is about 8 feet. So another shallow lake. Even though it's shallow, though, it's just full of wildlife. When you come to Lake Maggiore or Boyd Hill on the shores of Lake Maggiore, you could see just this whole multitude of birds, alligators, fish, turtles, amphibians, even blue crab and crawfish and little things that you might not think about. It's really one of those biodiversity hotspots here in St. Pete, and we're really lucky to still have it around. And not only is it great for wildlife, but it's great for us. Lake Maggiore has been a local spot for fishing and boating and picnicking for decades. People have enjoyed it ever since they've lived around here, and it's still a really great place to visit for all of these things. It's very interesting to look at the history of Lake Maggiore through the years as well and kind of see how it's changed. On the left-hand side here, you see a picture of an aerial view of the lake from 1943. And you can see a lot of, undeveloped land around it, a lot of open forest, a lot of open fields, a lot of natural habitat surrounding the lake. Now, of course, when you look at it from 2021's viewpoint, there's a lot more development. The greenery around it is really only Boyd Hill, which is this curved bit right here along the southwestern shore of the lake. And you're also going to see more brown patches moving in from the sides, and those are actually patches of cattail and other vegetation that are kind of encroaching into the middle of the lake, which can cause problems when it comes to the lake filling in and getting shallower over time because all of those plants are taking up water and taking up space. So As the decades have gone on, we've had a few more challenges pop up for the lake. One of those, of course, is development. We have lost a lot of the surrounding wetlands around the lake. We have increased stormwater input going into the lake because we have more roads that can't soak up that stormwater, instead just push it down into the lake through storm drains. And of course, just general habitat loss surrounding the lake that has reduced some of the biodiversity. Now, we've also got pollution problems, a lot of fertilizers, including nitrogen and phosphate, that get flushed into the lake from people's lawns and golf courses and things like that. And that also includes pesticides, and we get trash in the lake. But we also have invasive species problems. Most people who, know a little bit about wild Florida and the problems that the different habitats around here face have heard of different invasive species and how hard they can be to handle. Well, it's the same thing for Lake Maggiore. We've got water hyacinth and water lettuce that cause some major problems, especially right along the shoreline. And like I said earlier about the cattail, while the cattails are native, they're actually considered invasive. Any species that kind of gets out of control and takes over an area can be considered invasive, even if it's native. And that's what cattail is doing. So sometimes we have to take some control measures against that species as well. So what can you guys do to help us preserve Lake Maggiore, to help us all preserve Lake Maggiore? Well, you can support local conservation efforts. That includes the Friends of Boyd Hill Nature Preserve, the Friends of Salt Creek, Keep Pinellas Beautiful, which is a really awesome organization. You can reduce fertilizer and pesticide use, and that could include using compost in your garden beds instead of fertilizers, or spreading mulch to control your weeds instead of herbicides. You can also stick to native plants for yards and ponds. Choosing native plants can really help you reduce your water usage. They're low maintenance, they can attract pollinators, and so it's really a win-win for everybody, and they're really beautiful. So, what's your favorite watering hole? Let us know in the comments. I really appreciate you guys joining me for this little dive into the lakes of Florida, and I hope you guys join me for next month's program. And then into the new year, we might change the format on this a little bit, but we'll keep bringing you this fun little series, and I hope you guys keep joining us. Thank you.